Hi, everybody. Steve Scott here, and let's talk about lesson plans and class outlines. When you teach, you have to know what you're teaching and when to teach it, and who to teach it to, and then how to go about teaching it. So, lesson plans are vital. We're going to talk about short term teaching and long term teaching. And that's where lesson plans, class outlines, planning your practices is important. Okay. So I'm taking my notes. I'm reading from my book, Coaching on the Mat. That's what this series is about, more effective coaching. So let's talk about lesson plan. And if I do look down from time to time, it's because I'm reading my notes. And if I do read it, please bear with me because I think it's worth repeating here. Using lesson plans. Let's talk about the difference first between lesson plans and class outlines. Okay, well, maybe you've heard of both, and maybe you use both. Maybe you're a school teacher. You know what I'm talking about. A class outline is an overall plan. I have an outline, let's say, take any given year, you choose the year. As a coach, it's a good idea to look long term and make an outline for that year or that period of time. It may be 6 months, maybe a year is too long, maybe 6 months is better. But you have a period of time, you may have a semester in school or college to work with. There's a good fixed date period of start and end time that you can have a class outline for. So those are the general skills, not just general, but specific skills also that you want to teach during that specific period of time. Okay. So that's a class outline. It's a broader base of planning that you can then draw in when you have a lesson plan to be more specific. And stay within those guidelines of that class outline. Make it pretty fixed. It doesn't have to be rigidly fixed, but you know what you want to do, you know what you want to teach, and then plan on how to teach that at what given time you're going to teach that, at what point in the semester, it's say at a school it may be, or a period of 6 months, or a year, whatever it may be in a club situation. So that's a class outline. Let me make sure I cover every point on that class outline here. Yeah, that's good. All right. More specific are lesson plans. That's what we hear more about anyway, a lesson plan. Now, a lesson plan is something you want in that class outline, you want to work on some specific things, okay? Okay, well, now's the time I'm going to work on, say, Osotogari, Major Adairi, with this particular group. Okay, I'm going to plan my lesson around that Osotogari, the drills I'm going to use for that on that particular workout or lesson or practice. Okay. Now, I've decided I'm going to use Osotogari, but let's say when everybody shows up, the people there, that show up, maybe that's not the skill I want to teach that night, or maybe it's not the appropriate crowd. Maybe the way I'm going to teach Osotogari that night may be a bit too advanced for the guys who show up. The preponderance, the larger number of people may be novices. So I may have to alter that way I approach or teach Osotogari to change to fit the group that's there. So be flexible. Be flexible in your lesson plans. Okay. Maybe Osotogari wasn't a good example, but you understand what I mean. Be flexible, and you may have to change that lesson plan to meet the needs of those who show up in the dojo or the gym. So a lesson plan isn't a rigid, set in stone type of thing. It can be changed as necessary. And during the course of the practice, you may change it to a degree to fit this, the situation at hand. Or you may change a drill here and there to say, okay, they're doing better on this. I'm going to emphasize this more and back off what you originally had planned. So a lesson plan is really a structured way of teaching that night or that practice. And you're going to have a whole bunch of lesson plans within your overall class outline. Okay. And it's important to write your lesson plans down, to have them on paper. Even if you just jot notes in a general sense in a notebook, do that. I've done that for years. I still do that, even though I've been teaching for well over 40 years. And it works. That way I can kind of stay with a structure. I have an idea. Now, I have a better idea now that I'm a very experienced coach than when I was a new coach. I would write the things down meticulously. And I made the mistake of trying to follow with them too closely, but I learned to be more flexible. So your lesson plan, you write it down, jot down the drills you want to use that practice. And it's very important because you can stick with it and it gives you a guide to follow that practice. You know, you may get in the heat of things and start working, running and do the workout. And then, oh, I got to refer to my notes. Where's the next step I want to do? It happens. So use that lesson plan, be flexible with it, but write it down. If you have to make changes, jot down the changes, because it's also a good tool for later. I look back at some of the old lesson plans I did when I was a younger coach, and I could see where I was on the right track or the wrong track. I could see where I could adjust and look back at your old lesson plans, like I said, and they're great tools for you to learn from as a coach. So lesson plans are the actual hands-on daily plan of coaching that you follow. The class outline is the overall structure that you give yourself that you want to follow. Use time wisely. Lesson plans, class outlines allow you to use your time more wisely. You can have a much more effective and efficient practice if you plan things out, know pretty much when you want to do things, when to give them water breaks or this or that, but also in a larger sense, like in a class outline thing, in what's called periodization or training cycles. Okay, you have a large period of time. Let's say I'm prepping my athletes for a specific national tournament. Say we're training for the National Sambo Championships. Well, I know that I have a period of time. This is called periodization. This is where class outlines and lesson plans are essential. That I have, let's say, 12 weeks out. I set up my period of training for that, specifically for that tournament. Okay? And we structure the whole period of training to the point where the guys are on the mat fighting at the tournament. 12 weeks after we started our training specifically for that tournament. I have certain levels of expectation. They have to show up in shape at a particular level before they start their training. So you may even have some pre-periodization to get them in shape before. But during that period of time, during that 12-week period of time, I'm just using 12 as an example, 12 weeks. But that I specifically know each week what I want them to do. And each practice, what I want them to do. Goals they need to accomplish, drills we need to do, things we need to do each practice. So time management is essential if you in training your athletes. So that's where a larger training cycle, a larger class outline would fit into that training cycle. These are the goals, these are the things we want to do. And then I manage it down where there's smaller periods, smaller segments of time, which fit into my lesson plans. Each practice should have a lesson plan. You should have some idea, some goal, some practice plan to follow. Don't just show up and say, okay, warm up, boys, let's go do this. Really, you owe it to your students as an instructor to plan out what you're doing. So lesson plans, class outlines are essential. I just touched on them briefly here. There are a lot of books and reference you can get to. There are a lot of things on the internet to talk about lesson plans and class outlines. But I really recommend it highly that you plan what you do, have a larger plan, which is a class outline, and have a flexible, more flexible lesson plans that you do on a daily basis each time you show up at the dojo or the gym and train your guys.
Chest on back, control the head the whole time. All right, go to the right. Always controlling the head.
This is a standard spin drill. You see this a lot in judo and wrestling. And Ken Brink is having the group tonight. Just do this. He has them go right, left on his command. You see them doing it here.
Left.
It's
Sorry, Johnny doesn't know his right and his left.
just a movement drill, just to get a warm up. It's pertinent to what we're going to be doing tonight, which is Newaza, or ground
Monte,
fighting.
switch.
I'm looking at Johnny.
All of you have wrestled or done judo at any length of time, sambo, you know this is what we do.
Contact with your hands.
Head. Look, every time you go out, you push, keep the hand on the head. Right. Right back, Gavin. Left.
It's just a warm-up spinning drill for ground fighting Newaza.
Right.
There we have it. That's it on lesson plans and class outlines. And thank you for watching.